Hey there, it's Duke Ferguson, owner, CEO, and master trainer of Unleash Potential Canine and creator of dog training Genesis. Have you ever struggled so much with your dog's behaviors that you ended up seeing like 5 to 6 different trainers of all aspects of training, different methods, different extremes, as well as spending countless hours on YouTube, Google, and Facebook, spending thousands of dollars only to have little success? And then for some of those trainers that you hired over a period of a year tell you should euthanize your dog, you should rehome your dog's not trainable. But despite those trainers and other people telling you to kill your dog, that it's untrainable, you don't give up. And you finally find a system that works and it changes your life and your dog's life for good, for the better. If you said yes, then you need to listen to Christine's story. Christine knows far too well how this feels. And in this video, we sit down together and she shares her story and her journey and how she became a professional trainer. It's juicy, it's emotional, it's entertaining, and I'm sure you'll relate. Enjoy. Tell us about your journey into becoming a dog trainer.
Okay.
Because it is really interesting. I think
Okay.
Mary Kay would love to hear it. I mean, she's got lots of stuff.
I haven't heard it, so I need to hear it.
No.
So I've always wanted a dog of my own. I've always had dogs growing up, like hunting dogs from my mom, but I always wanted my own dog. And it was never attainable because when I was younger, obviously I was a kid, and then I went to college, and I always helped my friends' dogs. I'd always train them and do little things. And then I went to corporate world, and I worked way too much to have my dream dog, which is a German Shepherd. I've always just looked at them and been like, I love those dogs. I really want one.
They asked you too, what is your dream job?
Yeah, so when I would do interviews, a common question is, if you could just do anything you wanted, don't think about money, just sit there and think, what would you want to do in life? And I always, without a doubt, would say, I want to be a dog trainer. I'd always say it. Like if I was sitting there taking a test in my at Chico State, I'd be like, I just want to be a freaking dog trainer. Like I don't want to do this. Or I would be, doing sales, and I'm like just sitting there. I'm like, I just want to train dogs. Like it was always just something that was in my heart, but I just never thought it was possible because I didn't have any type of background except for when I was a kid, and my mom had hunting dogs, and I remember having we had this Cocker Spaniel named Weatherby, he still has my heart to this day. He was a hunting dog, and I would get dove wings and hide them and make him go find them. And I was really into it. I thought it was the funnest thing in the world.
How old were you then?
I was like 6 or 5.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's cool.
something very young, very young. But I remember doing that and just being so amazed by Weatherby, and he would sniff it out, and it was so fun. And so we were moving to Oklahoma, or there was an opportunity for my husband to move to Oklahoma, and I'm a California girl, and I was like, I'll move to Oklahoma if I can get a German Shepherd, because it was like I now have the space and
That's
the
an
time.
ultimatum to a
I was
husband.
working a deal.
Like, wait a
Working a
minute.
I
deal.
was like, I'll go there if I can get a German Shepherd.
Marketing.
So we went to go look for a dog, just look, and we went to this place in Oklahoma, or in Oakland, California, and there was this litter. There was like a really, really scared German Shepherd, and I was like, no, I don't want a scared one. And there was this other one that was kind of scared and kind of not a little confident. And then there was one like 5 yards over that way, paying no attention to me, the biggest one of the group, playing with the kids. And I was assessing the two that were, because I thought, oh, they pick you, the dog picks you. That's just something I always thought. And so I was assessing those two, like with the knowledge that I had. And my husband's like, I want that one. And I looked at him like, the one that's completely ignoring us? And he's like, yeah, look, he's playing with kids. It'll be great. And we were like, hey, come here. And it was the kids' favorite because he had so much energy to keep up with the little children. And they loved him to death. And I was just like, I don't know, he's not really paying attention. And we would like try to call him over, nothing. So we're like, okay, we'll take that one.
Is that the one you took?
That's the one we took.
That's okay.
That's Kent. And so we got him, had no idea what we were doing. Our friends just had a puppy. The puppy was like 6 months old. It was this Labrador, an amazing Labrador. And we were just like, oh, it's going to be just like this puppy. And so they gave us all this like information that was really good. And then I went over some training like crate training and potty training and all that stuff. So I was trying to be like super perfect. And so we got the crate, we got everything, we started training him, and he was a handful. We got him at 7.5 weeks. He was yelling in the crate. There's a picture of my husband sleeping next to the crate because he was so
I know people do that
exhausted.
all the time.
Yeah. And his crate was right next to our bed. Like that's how much. So we realized we had a lot on our plate and no experience for this dog. And so I was like, okay, we have to get a trainer. And I didn't really know like trainers were like a thing. I called my brother and he trains his dog to hunt. And so I called him first and I asked for advice and he's just like, you just got to be, the man of the house. And I'm like, okay.
Old school stuff.
Yeah. And then, so he started doing some things like that I noticed, like when I got closer to his food bowl, he'd start eating it really fast. And then I would Google, my dog's eating really fast when I get close to the food bowl, what do I do? And Google was like, stick your hand in the bowl, like take the bowl away, like said everything possible on Google. So I was doing that, I was sticking my hand in the bowl, and it was getting worse. And eventually he started baring his teeth, and he's like this 9-week-old puppy, and I'm like, why are you baring your teeth? Like, no, I'm the boss of the house. Like, you're not allowed on the bed. You're not allowed on the couch. Like, yeah. And so, yeah.
Handle the dishes a little
yeah.
bit.
And so he started resource guarding. He started like attacking, like whenever he was bored, he would just start nipping at me and attacking me, and like a little bit more than like an average puppy. Because I would ask my friends that had puppies, does your puppy do this? And they're like, no, not at all. And I'm like, okay. So I'm Googling stuff. And then I find this trainer that in the area, and he was like, had really good reviews. He had like this wolf as his dog, and I was like, okay, if he can handle a wolf. He can handle my dog, because he was
a little wolf.
Yeah, and the thing is my husband, he never did this to my husband. He'd only do it to me. And so I was really frustrated. He's like, you just gotta like be the man of the house. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean?
What does it mean?
And so he would like I would try to take the ball away, and he would like start biting me like pretty aggressively. And then I was getting really worried. So I was doing like things like grabbing his nose and saying no, because that's what people told me to do. I had no idea what I was doing. Called the trainer, interviewed him, assessed him to what I thought was, is he a weirdo or not? No, he's not a weirdo. Okay, cool, train my dog. So I think he was 3 or 4 months old. He was assessing Kent, and he was like, "Oh wow, we really got a
live one.
Got a live one on our hands." And I was like, "Yeah, can you help?" And he's like, "Yep." He started doing a couple things, and Kent was just like, "I don't care." So he's like, "Okay, if you want to act like an adult, we're going to treat you like an adult."
To the dog.
Yeah.
At 3 months.
Yeah. So he put a prong on him, and he goes, "This is what you do." So he's sitting there talking. I think Kent did something like whine, and he's like, "Ba ba 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 ba," and I can see Kent's face kind of like, "What?
What the heck
Yeah."
happened?
And he's like,
"Who are you?"
He's like, "Now he won't do that ever again." And I'm like, "Okay," and it worked. And I was like, "Okay, so now what do I do?" And so he had this massive prong collar on him at such a young age, and so I was doing that and training him like, "No, don't, just don't do that." And then it would make him even more
Fired
aggressive
up.
towards me. And I was like, "Okay, this isn't working." And I would call and I'd be like, "Hey, he really bit me really bad this time, and like I had to like pin him to the ground like you told me to, and all that
really
stuff."
old school.
Old school, yeah.
Really
Super old school.
Yeah.
And then he just said typical stuff like, "Oh, he needs more exercise," stuff like that. I was like, "Okay." So while I was doing that, I also took him to another trainer to socialize him. So it was a group class.
There's a trainer too.
Trainer 2. So
Plus the books and
plus the books.
the neighborhood.
I was
thing.
also taking him
Google.
Google's trainer for
Dr.
4.
Google.
No, just kidding. I was also taking him and socializing him. So I read that your dogs aren't supposed to touch the ground until they have all their shots, but that the dog had to be socialized within a certain period of their their time or else they're going to be aggressive. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I'd come around with a blanket and put it on the ground. And at the time I worked at a company that had like 600 people. So at lunchtime they'd come down and just give them treats, give them treats, give them treats. And I was just like, good boy, good job. Like just trying to socialize them. Took them to
And
elderly
now look
care.
at him like when he meets you, he's
Yeah.
just like, ah!
Yeah.
So he started learning
That's
when he met
imprinted.
people.
Jumps over.
Yeah, he learned that when he met people, it
He's
was
friendly.
Yeah, yeah. So we went to trainer number 2, and it was like this group class setting, like a puppy class, and clicker training. And so he.
So trainer 1, before we go to trainer 2
Yeah.
and the positive training, I mean, with just that story alone, and you can see where when I was at my seminar and I was teaching about tools versus pressure,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of people that would see your story, because you're not the only one, that's totally like, you know, I'm sure everybody who's watching the whole video would even see that, hey, I've been through that before. And some people and some trainers believe that, see, those tools
Mhm.
are the things that create aggression, but what we have to realize is it really the tool or the way that it was used? Because you know what we can do now with these tools.
Yeah.
So it's a pressure thing, and that actually is a cool story because it reinforces it. But that's why I want to better trainers and better the industry, because we can use these tools, not quite the old school. Because I've done that years ago too, and I've experienced similar aspects.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a pressure issue.
Well, it was compulsion.
Compulsion.
That wasn't even a.
So
A
sometimes
positive
for
puppy.
certain dogs, especially a young dog,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
pressure itself is really, and the approaches and the methodology that they've
it's
given
the
you
approach.
is kind of what caused those issues. Because your story gets juicier too. I mean, but it's really not a tool issue. That's the thing I like to always point out. Anyway, keep going
No,
with the
wasn't
so trainer number
introduced
2.
quite
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So it would be clicker training in a group setting, and it would also be puppy socialization. So
With the prong collar on?
no, this
No
was a
prong
different.
now.
This was like a group.
Different trainer.
Yeah, because I wanted to
different system.
socialize them with other puppies,
Okay.
and so
Flat collar, just a regular
just
flat collar.
just a clicker, just clicker.
But in a flat collar with a leash, or just?
Yeah, just a leash on, just a normal
leash collar.
with a leash on.
Okay.
And he would
the
do
picture.
really good if there's nobody else around. If it was just me and him, and sometimes he would even be a kind of a jerk and be a little pushy, like I'm not treating him fast enough, like I'm not giving him treats fast enough, so he would
Okay.
start.
Which is another
Yeah,
Okay.
and so
opposite side of the
yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah. So you went
so
the other direction.
he would kind of start barking at me and like getting pushy and kind of like he controlled me, and I was trying to be
Figure
the
it out.
controller, and I
tried to be
I
the
was
man.
afraid of him. Yeah, I was
You were
trying to
told to
man
be a
up.
man
Be the
around.
man.
Yeah, be the man of the house.
It's a little hard.
Exactly. Yeah. What's that mean?
And so when we would do training for trainer number 2, we had to put barriers up because he just wanted to go see all the dogs and people. And so I was sitting there like trying to listen to the instructor in this really distracting setting, and in this really distracting setting, and trying to listen to what they said, but then apply it with him. But he was the dog in the group.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. He was the dog in the group that would be barking the whole time.
Yeah.
That would be, if you weren't giving him attention, he'd be like,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, good boy, Wayne. And so I was really frustrated because I didn't really learn much because I was so focused on being really embarrassed by him. And when we finally released him to do the puppy socialization, he dominated the puppies.
Jeez.
And I was like, what do I do when he does that? Like, he'd pin dogs to the ground. He would, if the dog submitted, he would go even harder on them.
This is clicker?
Wow.
Yeah, this is in the puppy social.
Oh, he would.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was gonna be like, that doesn't sound
No,
normal.
the dog
No,
would.
no,
It
he,
would.
and so they would just be like, you need to control your dog. And I'm like, well, that's why I'm
That's
here.
why I'm here.
How do I do that? Nobody could answer. And so I'm like, I would go, no, and he would just,
Yeah.
didn't mean anything.
What's that
yeah.
mean?
And so he failed that. We got kicked out because he was
Get kicked out.
he was pissing off all the puppies. Like the puppies
And
would
the
either
instructor,
Kicked out
fight
of-
and the instructor couldn't help you with that
no
at
I
3
was-
months of
nope.
age. Okay.
They offered private one-on-ones, but I was just so frustrated at that point because I got nothing out of the group class that I was just like, whatever, we're moving anyways. Like,
Oh, you were still.
Yeah, and I was just like, I was
Okay.
so frustrated. And I was like, okay, well, this isn't working. And the fact that they couldn't answer the question of what do I do when my dog is bullying the other dogs, that really bothered me. Because that was the second trainer that couldn't really answer some questions. It was just either correct or reward. That's what I got. Correct the dog if he's, or reward him. And I'm like, what do I do if he does something bad? No answer. So, for the trainer number 2. So, we moved to Oklahoma. I think I started doing some online YouTube videos for him and trying to apply what I learned online. Didn't work. And so I went to another trainer that was like the main trainer number
Number 3.
3. That was the main trainer of the area that showed up in my Google search. Watched the videos, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to go to them. And so I told them, I'm like, we just did food training, and he's not really listening whenever he's not hungry. And if there's a distraction, he doesn't want to eat the food. And I've tried all the treats out there. I've even tried like bear scents on my hands to get his attention,
Jeez.
like because his nose was so strong.
Oh my
Bear
gosh.
scents.
Yeah. I went back to what I knew, and I went to the hunting store and I put stuff on my hands that was
wow.
like smelly just to get his attention. And he'd smell it and be really interested. I'm like, cool, now we're gonna go on a walk and you're just gonna smell my hands. Like, I was just trying anything I could possibly think
Wow, that's
of. But the moment his
Extreme.
nose,
Creative,
yeah.
yeah, creative though. Yeah.
So I think he was about 5 months old or at this time. We went to another trainer, and they were prong trainers. And I was like, okay, well, I know that. We were
I know how to
doing
do
that.
that.
We were doing that before. So he went to a bunch of board and trains with them. We did group classes, and you did a bunch of day trains. So day trains is when you drop the dog off for the day, and then they train it. They teach you what he learned that day, and then you go home and you practice. You had homework. So we were doing it, and it'd work, and then the moment there's a distraction, nothing. It also started making some behaviors worse. Like he was resource guarding his food, and I would correct him because I would have the prong on a small leash the entire time.
Wow.
And so I'd correct it, and it'd make him bare his teeth even more. And then I thought, okay, old school. Someone told me to bite my dog's ear. And so I was like, I'm not going to do that. But then I was so desperate at that point. So I'm like, okay,
Wow.
next time he does that, next time he tries to attack me, I'm going to bite his ear.
Holy
So embarrassing.
cow.
I can't believe I'm saying this. So
No, but it's
You
the
were doing
truth
what
because
you were
you know
told.
what? You're doing what you're told, and
Yeah.
you're desperate,
yeah,
and you care, and
Yeah.
you're creative, and you're like,
yep. Oh, okay, so I was told to bite his ear. I bit his ear, made him yipe. Didn't really do anything, just made
And
him
he
hate.
didn't redirect onto
Oh,
you,
you're lucky.
so you didn't get.
Well,
bit
I was
in the
on.
face?
I like pinned him and bit his ear, and I was like,
Okay.
and I was like, don't bite me again. And he was kind of like, whoa, what the heck? But it like, you could tell that it like destroyed our relationship.
I've been there. Years
yeah.
ago, I've been there. I'm like,
Yeah. Mhm.
That's extreme.
And so trainer number 3, we were training doing prong collar. There were no food though. They're like, don't worry, we don't do food. Dog just listens because you're the leader. And I'm like, oh, I love that. Cool. I don't have to have food on me all the time. Like, oh, great, because it wasn't working. Cool. And then so he would be so amazing in class or in the facility. But the moment that leash was transferred to me or my husband, he no respect. And so I was studying the trainers. I watched how they turned. I even wrote notes because I was like, because they would talk so fast, and I'd be like, whoa, slow down. So I need to do this turn and go like that. And so I even wrote like notes where I drew the picture and I did an arrow and when they turned and stuff, just so I could remember and then practice. And I would video myself and send the video to my trainer. My trainer probably hated me because I videoed that. I sent them videos every freaking day.
every day.
And he did really great with the trainer. And so I voiced my concerns, and I was just like, backstory. The first trainer said, you have a lot of dog on your hand. You might want to consider euthanizing him. And or
That was the
a
prong collar,
puppy.
the first
Yeah.
one,
The
like
first
puppy,
yeah.
4 months old.
Itty bitty puppy.
and or give him up to a more experienced handler.
So she was determined, I'm
So
not
that
killing
made you
him.
feel good.
Yeah,
Self-confidence.
Yeah.
First trainer
Way to
tells
go,
me to
trainer.
kill him.
yeah,
And that's a prong
Or
collar
give him
trainer.
away.
yeah.
Like that's a pressure trainer.
hmm
Wow.
So that usually that's the extreme on the
Yeah.
opposite side.
hmm
But so
Yeah.
Goodness
At this point, I'm like living and breathing this dog. This dog is my life. I love him to pieces, but there were times when he was a complete animal, and I didn't know how to handle it. And so I would ask questions, and I never really got an answer. It was just correct it. Don't allow him to be above you. So they would say things like, if he's above you, that means he's the leader. And so I would never, like if I sat down on the ground and he would be sitting up, I would make him lay down so he was lower than me. Like I would pick him up from his day in trains. I went out of town a lot for my work. And so he did a lot of board and trains there. He was advanced obedient trained. The trainers would show him as the example of what a dog should look like, the end product. But the moment the leash came to me, it didn't work. It would work for a little bit, but the moment there was a dog, the moment there was a person or some sort of a smell, and I was so like determined. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just not doing it right. So I would ask the trainer, I'd be like, how do you how do you do it? And I'm like, I want to practice, but I don't want to like practice on him for no reason. And they're like, okay, put the prong on a chair and start popping it so you can get better at it. So I would just sit there at home, putting the prong on the chair and just popping it. And then until they were like, that's how you do it. I'm like, cool. Put it on my dog, nothing. Wouldn't work. It would work in lotus acting. It wouldn't work in normal everyday life. He's 3.
Not that long ago.
oh,
No.
We're not talking really old school.
No. And so we started doing group classes because when I went to my trainer and I said, listen, his behavioral issues are getting worse. He's like starting to really, really bare his teeth, really like,
I wonder why.
yeah. And so she's like, let me see you with him. And so, yeah.
Cranking on him. Maybe it's only young.
She watched me with him, like trying to get him into a down, to lay down. I was afraid to do it because he would redirect on my hand.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I'll show you. And so she watched me, and every time I did like a correction or whatever, he just like, you could just tell he was just like, you could see it in his body language that he just hated me. And so I was doing it, and she's like, there is no respect here. Like, you are not the leader. So, like,
You're still not a man.
yeah.
You're still not a man.
You,
I hate to break it to you. Genetics was against that.
yeah, like when I was teaching her, I was doing that, putting him into a down, and she got so frustrated that she went and grabbed it and did that, and he went into a down, and she's like, we need to have a serious conversation here. And I'm
With
like,
the dog or you?
with me. I wasn't doing it right. I wasn't the leader, but I was doing everything that they told me. I broke down crying. I started bawling. I was like, I don't understand. Like, I'm literally doing everything that you guys tell me to do because I always got, he doesn't do that with me. And I was like, okay, but I'm paying you to have him listen to me because when I got this puppy, I envisioned off leash, running, hiking, just having a blast, throwing the ball. I wasn't expecting like this huge, I'm getting emotional now.
Good.
I wasn't expecting like this like dog that like hated me and was biting me and being super aggressive and like really, but then being super cute and loving me, and then but I was like withholding affection because he had to earn it and he wasn't listening, so.
So I always get a kick out of it. Like, I mean,
It's
how
a
do they
relationship.
earn it by doing, like, what do they have to look forward to? If you
Yeah.
liked, did you crave?
Yeah. I mean, there was no relationship.
Just
there.
avoidance of, like, you.
Mhm.
You do it from her.
And I would take him to dog parks to socialize him, and he would get in fights with like almost any dog that would take on a fight with him. And I was like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, and so I was told like pin him on the ground and don't let him back up until he's totally calm, and then he can go and play. And the moment we would go into a dog park, I would let the leash go, and he would go booking. He would just run. And I would be like, can't, like, I have a ball. Like, let's have fun. And he was just like, bye. And so he would run and he would hang out with all the people and he would do like this. I don't know if it's a shepherd thing, but he would kind of like perk his ears up and look at me from afar away, turn, and then prance with his tail up. Because I'd be like, can't. And he'd be like, not going.
That's
Nope.
not just a shepherd thing.
Yeah. And so he would even like walk people out of the dog park. Like
He loved other
anytime.
people. He's like, will
yeah.
you take me home?
Yeah.
Will you
he-
take me home?
I would always joke.
He's just trying to kill
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. And so I would always, and
Oh my lord.
so then we went to another place while still doing this, and it was more for socializing and helping him. I was like, maybe he just needs more experience with dogs. We kept getting in dog fights, and it was really stressing me out because I didn't want an aggressive shepherd because I didn't want to be that stereotypical female owner with a shepherd that was aggressive. And I was like, what the heck? I had been doing everything right, I thought. And yeah. And so we go to this other facility.
And he's-
Yeah, and
and
this
he's under
is
a year old still?
Still
yeah,
under you.
he's like 6-7 months.
Oh lord.
And yeah, so we go to another place, and it was very different. It was more like social, like a social training.
Yep.
It's hard to explain. There wasn't really any training. It was
Not obedience, more just how to get along.
like kind of like a hippie style, I guess.
Everybody smoked weed. They're all
It was
happy
it was
now.
just like your dog's just be afraid, like, you know, be happy and positive. And I was like, yeah, this is fun. So I would drop him off there. He was doing actually really good. And then he got attacked by a dog, and he was playing with one dog, and then another dog that was a sibling cornered him and attacked him. He had puncture wounds all over his body. And then then he started becoming fence aggressive. So whenever we were at the dog park and he would go over to the fence, he would lose his mind and attack dogs. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm trying to exercise this dog. I can't take him to the dog park. Like, I'm super, like, I'm fighting with my husband because we're like, no, the trainer said do it this way. No, you got to do it this way. Like, we were trying, like, we lived and breathed this dog. But I wasn't giving up because he was amazing at the house, minus the dog was great, but
That's the one. You sound like a
my dog's amazing,
Yeah,
but he
but-
bites me
I love
when
him
I
so
go.
much, but
But
he's so
Yeah.
sweet, but
It got so bad to the point where I would walk into the kitchen while he's eating, staring at me,
but not
full
with your
on,
husband.
not with my husband, full on staring at me, baring his teeth like this, just and like not breaking eye contact, and so I'm like, I'm staring you down. I'm not breaking. I'm the alpha. I'm staring at you, not breaking eye contact. And he's like, and I'm like, nope, not break. I'm freaking scaring you. Please don't bite me. Like, told not to break eye contact. Yeah. So he was kicked out of that place. He didn't start the fight, but he's very good at fighting dogs. So he hurt that dog too. Not to the point of like any severe like.
He didn't start it.
He didn't start it, but he finished it. The dog's not.
kicked out.
Yeah. And so I started crying again. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what to do. And so the person at that facility recommended this positive trainer that helped her dog. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm desperate. Like, okay, I'll meet with her. I spend an hour with her. I was like, I talked to her like 3 hours on the phone. I spent an hour with her, and she assessed everything and watched him attack dogs at the dog park. And she said, well, one of your main issues is the prong collar. The prong collar is the reason why your dog is aggressive. The prong collar is the reason why it's an abusive tool. She talked about how the skin is thinner and how they feel pain a lot more than we do. Because I was like, it didn't hurt me when I did it.
It's kind of interesting to see the contrast between, you get the old school, and
Yeah.
you got some early stages of positive trainers, and now you have it sounds like extremism, right? An anti-tool.
Yeah.
Nothing against, again, the pressure, right? But the same time talking about tools and that stuff,
Bryce.
and then realizing
Wayne.
and saying that they're sensitive, but yet they got teeth and they grab each other by the necks all
Yeah.
the time and playing. So
Yeah.
it's an extreme point on the opposite end now, right?
Yeah. So she was like, the prong collar, saying like correcting your dog is very abusive and inhumane, and some countries have banned the tool or something like that. I start bawling again, and I'm like, he's been on it like twice and like half his life, and oh my gosh, and I thought it was the most terrible mom in the world. So he goes into a rehab board and train, and she brings him back. He actually he was doing really well with dogs. His obedience, he was happy, he was listening. And then we would go into the real world, and he still wouldn't listen. I was latched onto her, and I was like, okay, how do I replicate what you do? Because he was great with her. Again. But the moment I was training him, or my husband, he was a mess. And yeah, and so I was just like, okay, I'm not giving up. Like, there's hope. I saw a spark of hope. I'm going to do it. Like, but again, I couldn't take him on walks. And so his obedience was solid. Like, okay, my dog has great obedience in a very controlled environment at my house.
Inside. Which is classic of what we hear.
Yeah.
So this is on the flip side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we hear with positive training, people are like, Dookie, we works really good at home when there's no distractions. But when there's distractions, everything goes out the window.
Yeah.
So.
But a board and train should work through that.
Right.
Yeah.
I would think.
Yep.
Number 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Okay.
And this is all in the first year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's not even a year old yet.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I did a lot of training and group training with her, and she was very affordable. And so I was bringing out more money because she was hourly, and at the time, like in my mind, it was very affordable after everything I just spent. And so,
Until you realize at the end of the year how affordable it was.
Yeah, and so we would, before group class, because he was always a mess in group class, we're like, maybe he just has so much energy, he has to just like run it out. And so we would run him 4 miles to the facility, or 5 miles, and then do a group class and really try to get him focused and paying attention. Because all the other dogs were doing fantastic. And I was like, and our dog would be like, bah, bah, bah. Kent would just whine and bark and kind of get super like excited and hackles up whenever a dog came near us. And I was just like, what the heck? Like, this is so frustrating. And then she was like, well, he doesn't do that with me. Like, he knows better than this. But if I did too much leash correction with him, she would say it was you loosen up on the call. Yeah, on the loosen up on the leash. And so I was trying to like, I went from extreme to another extreme, and it was just frustrating. And I was at the point where I was just like, okay, I'm either going to like keep him inside or like figure something out. Like, he was going to be a backyard dog at this point. Yeah.
Which is what a lot of people will do.
And at this point,
Or kill him.
Or
You
walk
put him in the humane
midnight.
society.
and at this point, my expectations were I just want to take him for a walk. I just want to take him for a walk without him
Just
dragging me across the street to another person or a dog. Like,
That's all you
because
wanted.
he's a big boy, and he could really, he like weighed the same that I did.
Yeah.
So I was told that these tools were really bad, but then I had Genesis but returned it because I was super overwhelmed and
Just with everything.
with everything.
Yeah.
And actually,
It's a totally different what you're learning.
yeah, but what was cool is he was your videos was the first program that taught me anything about why my dog was the way that he was, and made me understand him more. But at that point, I was just like, I can't handle him. And I've put my heart and soul into this dog, and I've really like put in 100,000% into him.
And how much money did you spend over the period of a year?
So at a period of a year, we spent between $6,000 to $7,000
$6,000 to $7,000.
on training.
And she still
And you
Not
still
met.
didn't have a dog that
No.
could walk down the street.
And so we would do,
kind of go through the videos at all because
No.
she's getting all this stuff. Right? She's stressed out.
yeah,
I remember that actually because
Mhm.
we don't get any return,
Yeah.
which is a good thing. And
Yeah.
I remember talking to her and then talking.
yeah, I was a stress case. And so, because nobody could answer the questions that I had issues with, it was either ignore the behavior or correct the behavior. But my brother was like, you need to put a shock collar on that dog. He's like, get a shock collar on that dog. Like, this is ridiculous.
I hate that word.
Yeah, me too. And so I was like, I'm really nervous about this. Like, and so I was like behind my trainer's back talking to this trainer because I wasn't getting the results that I wanted and that I knew that he could get. And I was sick of being told that my dog was untrainable. And it didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me. Like, how can you be so perfect inside and be a complete spazball outside? And how can he be so aggressive but then so loving to a dog inside? It was just so weird to me. And like, this was my last resort before I like completely gave up. And I'm not a person really to give up. And so I go down, I meet him, and I feel the collar. I'm super skeptical. And I'm like, and I tell him to turn it up a little bit because I've been told all this stuff that it's not good. But then I see the dogs that you guys are training, and I'm like, I don't understand. They look really happy and they're listening. I don't get this. And I've been told correcting your dog is a bad thing. It's inhumane, and I feel like such a crappy mom, but I'm desperate, and I have to figure this out. And so he put the collar on him, and he's working Kent, and Kent knows all the obedience work. This is why he met with me, because he wouldn't
even spoke to Ken. He wouldn't say nothing.
Yeah, and he had all and he told me, he's like, because he has all the training, I'm going to do this. And so put the collar on him, started working him, and I was like, at first I just thought, I didn't know what he was doing, so I was like, he's not even listening. Great, cool. My dog is, and all of a sudden, like, I kind of tuned out, and all of a sudden, Kent was healing with him, and he was coming when called, and like, and I was like, okay, like, this is super cool, but it's not going to work with me. Yeah, and so
What did he look like? What did the dog look like when he was doing
Kent?
it? Was he like nervous? Was he scared?
No.
And was David like running around and popping on the
No,
leash?
David was just standing there.
Standing still.
Yeah. It was like the most magical thing. All of a sudden, I was like, what did you do? Like, what just happened? Because I was waiting for Kent to go like, "Wah!" or something, because it felt fine on me, but I was like, I don't know, dogs have thinner skin, so like they feel pain a lot quicker and more than me do, and stuff, and so that's what I've been told. And so all of a sudden he was walking next to me.
Or David? And then he handed it over to you?
Yeah, so he told me to grab the leash, and I started walking, and Kent was just walking with me. Super calm, super relaxed, no pulling. And I was just like, shut the
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I was just like, what? And then he was, and so he told me, he's like, now walk over here, now tell him to come, now do all this. And I was like, what is this magical thing? Like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And I probably cried. And
She said to me that I don't cry much.
I don't cry. Yeah.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. And so he's like, now what I want you to do is walk. We were at this like gas station where there's people coming and going, a very popular gas station. And he's like, now what I want you to do is walk past the front door of the gas station. And I was like, I looked at him like, what? And he's like, I'm like, you don't understand. He's just going to jump all over the place and people are going to freak out and he's going to be all crazy. And he's like, nope, just do it. I'm like, okay. Like, so I start walking Kent and I'm walking him and I see people and I'm starting to get off. He's like, just relax. And I'm like, oh God. And he walks by. He goes to like sniff the person. He's super calm. Kent's super calm. And then just doesn't and keeps walking. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, what? And I remember just being like,
Wow.
I don't have one on me. I'm like, I love e-collars. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, he's not shut down. He's walking next to me. What the heck just happened?
Looking at you,
Oh my
engaged.
gosh. Yeah. And then I was like, should I rebuy Genesis? And he's like, absolutely. And he's like, I bought Genesis, I bought the collar, and then I was just hooked. And right then, that lesson I was like, I need to tell everybody about this.
I need to do this.
I need to do this for the rest of my life. This is what I'm meant to
It
do.
sounds like my story.
Yeah.
It's a conflict of everything
Yeah.
coming together and getting ripped apart by a really positive trainer or behavior that told me to kill my dog.
Yeah,
And having a one sentence on an email changed my mind.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
And little did you know, your dog was going to have to.
yeah,
she was
Yeah,
told to kill her
just like
dog.
this,
I was
yeah.
told to kill my dog.
Yeah.
yeah. I was
That's
told
crazy,
to kill my dog by 3 trainers. 2 of them were positive only, and all the other ones told me to rehome them.
Rehome him and kill him.
So, but I knew I have a lot of determination, and I knew nobody would have the determination for this guy unless it was some military person.
And you still a girl.
Yeah,
You
still a
She
girl.
has become the
You didn't
man
have,
of the
you didn't
house.
have to
Yeah.
become the man.
And what was crazy, and then I was so excited. We walked around downtown Dallas with him that day, and I was just like, there was times when he was like kind of a little excited and stuff, but it was like,
Night day.
oh my gosh.
So the whole thing is too. Not only was he's happy or not. Was he happy?
I mean,
calm and
he was calm, and he wasn't super anxious. I mean, he wasn't unhappy. He was thinking, and he wasn't stressed. His anxiety finally went away. It was the weirdest thing.
So he could think,
Yeah,
you know, really.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I remembered, just like, I'm like, I'm not doing what I do now anymore. I want to be a dog trainer. And so I just started researching people who I could shadow. And I was like, I need to learn more, because I wanted to be a UP canine. And I was like, do you think Duke will take me on? And David's like, you got to learn a little bit more first. And I was like, okay. And then so I started training under some amazing trainers and learning and I was like, every time I train, I was like, I want the most difficult dog. I want the one that is about to be euthanized. I didn't want the puppies. I wanted like the hard dogs. I wanted to learn, because my story was like everybody else's story that came in when I was training. And then finally, fast forward a couple years, Duke starts interviewing me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I hope I'm good enough, like all this stuff. And I go to your school and I passed with like a 98%.
The rest is history.
Yeah. So,
Wow, that's quite a journey.
yeah.
But what a pivotal thing, that dog that would pay attention to you
Yeah.
when you take him out changed him.
Yeah.
So I hope you enjoyed Christine's story. And you know, the crazy thing is there's many others with similar stories just like hers. Maybe you're one of them. So if you're looking for a trainer who's going to give you the help that you need the first time around, or if you are a trainer who wants to prevent being one of those trainers that was talked about, or if you want to up your skills, up your game, up your business, up your knowledge, then just head over to our website, unleashpotential.ca. When you're there, you'll find information on where to find a trainer in your area near you, how to attend my school, or how to access my online training videos in Dog Training Genesis. So thank you for watching. I hope you found it of value, and I'll see you in the next video. And don't forget to subscribe.